an epidemic of broken brains. I'm Dr. Mark Hyman. I'm a practicing functional medicine physician. I'm also the director of the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine, founder and director of the Ultra Wellness Center, and chairman of the board of the Institute for Functional Medicine. I'm also a 10-time New York Times bestselling author. Brain health is an important topic and a personal topic for me. And I'd like to take you on a journey to help you understand why. I want to ask you some questions. How do you feel today? Seriously, how do you feel? Does your mood and energy levels swing up and down? Are you depressed? Do you sleep poorly? Do you feel tired but wired? Do you depend on coffee in the morning just to wake up and maybe a few glasses of wine at night to calm down every day? Do you feel frustrated because you misplace objects or forget names? Do you suffer from brain fog? Do you find it hard to focus on tasks? Do you feel your energy diminishing as the days go on? If you do, you're not alone. This is how most Americans feel. In fact, I'd say we have an epidemic on our hands. Psychiatric disorders affect 26% of our adult population. That's over 60 million Americans. Over 20% of children have some type of psychiatric disorder. Over 40 million people have anxiety. And more than 20 million people have depression. 1 in 10 Americans takes an antidepressant. The use of antidepressants has tripled in the last decade. Alzheimer's disease will affect 30%, and some experts say up to 50% of the people over 85, which is the fastest growing segment of our population and will affect 106 million people by 2050. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD, is a label we now give to almost 9% of children between the ages of 8 and 15. Autism rates have increased in children from 3 in 10,000 to 1 in 166 and more. That's an 11-fold increase in the last decade. Learning disabilities affect between 5 and 10% of school-age children. These statistics are grim. And the indirect costs to society for these brain disorders are mammoth. They include loss of productivity at school, at home, or in the workplace, accounting for a loss of over $80 billion a year. I call this, and it happened almost overnight, and it happened as I realized because my whole system broke down from a number of insults that I wasn't aware of. It was pretty startling to be highly functional, highly capable of operating in the world, to being almost debilitated. I was really unable to function in any real way, and my brain wasn't working. I had trouble with remembering things. I had severe ADD. I couldn't focus on anything. I had memory issues. And because no one had really figured out what it was, I was told I had chronic fatigue syndrome, which means nothing other than you're tired and feel lousy all the time. I was told I had depression. I was told I was stressed and was recommended to take anti-anxiety medications. So I was given antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, ADD medications, and none of them really helped because I didn't deal with the root cause. I realized that as physicians, we're trained to actually label people and often tell them it's psychological when it's very physical, because we don't know what to do and we don't know how to find the answer and we don't know the questions to ask. Our broken brains cause many problems, such as anxiety, depression, bipolar disease, personality disorders, addictions, obsessive compulsive disorder, attention deficit disorder, autism, Asperger's syndrome, learning difficulties, and dyslexia. They take many shapes, including psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia and all the neurodegenerative diseases of aging, especially Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's disease. Have you ever wondered if you had a broken brain? Sometimes it's not obvious and doesn't show up in the form of dementia, ADHD, or depression. Maybe you fear losing your job because you're tired, unfocused, and inattentive, and your memory is failing so you can't properly perform your tasks at work. Do you see your relationships breaking down because you're mentally or emotionally absent or numb? Perhaps you struggle to focus to help your children with their homework and guide them through life, but end up feeling as though you aren't living up to your duties as a parent. Do you lie awake at night, tormented by the grief and pain of living half a life, and then worry about how you'll find a way to wake up early in the morning just so you can get your kids to school? Do you forget to meet your friends or go to appointments and then you can't figure out how in the world you forgot? So long we thought that the brain was unchangeable, that once our brain started to break down, we were stuck with it. Even worse, we thought that once the brain started to deteriorate, it was all downhill from there. We now know that this is not true, and that our brains are indeed changeable. This is the revolutionary idea of neuroplasticity.
So neuroplasticity is the ability of the brain to change throughout life. It was once believed that, the human adult brain reached its peak level of performance at around age 25, only to begin sort of a slow decline until death. And if you were a person that developed dementia or had a learning disability, there was not a whole lot that you could do to improve the way your brain worked. As of the early 90s, if I recall correctly, we now know that the human brain is able to grow new brain cells in the memory center of the brain throughout life. And this is something that I think is profoundly empowering, that our brains are actually plastic. Neuroplasticity, really, what that implies is that the brain, rather than being like this sort of static thing carved out of stone that we really inherited and couldn't do much to change, is actually more like plastic. It's malleable. Neuroplasticity tends to decline with age, but it's not necessarily inevitable. We can really have a positive impact on our brain health and our neuroplasticity at any age. And the research really shows this, thankfully, now. So we can transform our brains at any age into our biological best, whatever that means for you, whatever that means for me. It's different for everybody, but at least at this point, we don't have to sit on our hands.
How to fix your brain, you're going to have to accept a radically new way of thinking about health, one that most doctors today still struggle to understand. It's the idea that everything is connected. This means everything we do, everything we eat and think, how we sleep and live can actually change our brain at any given moment. Your entire body, including all of the core systems within it, interact as a single, sophisticated symphony. You are one whole person, and all the pieces of your biology and your unique genetic code interact with your environment to determine how sick or well you are in this moment. What you do to one has enormous impact on the other. What you do to your body, you do to your brain. That means it is possible to heal your body and thereby heal your brain. We know that your thoughts, beliefs, your attitudes, traumas, life experiences directly influence your biology. We know that stress and other psychological factors can have a major impact on your health. We now understand that 95% of all illness is either caused by or worsened by stress. What you think can influence how sick or well you are. The mind influences the body. This is known as mind-body medicine. And sadly, most physicians do not apply this knowledge in their practices even though they're aware of it. The body directly and powerfully influences the brain. And that means that nutritional status, hormonal imbalances, food allergies, toxins, digestive and immune and metabolic imbalances all influence our mood, our behavior, our attention, and our attitude. I want you to ponder these questions. Can lifelong depression be cured? Can children completely recover from autism? Can dementia be reversed? Conventional medical wisdom says no. We don't see many cases in the medical literature where people recover from autism, reverse dementia, or are cured from lifelong depression. But just because psychiatrists and neurologists aren't reporting the dramatic recoveries like these by employing normal methods used to treat these disorders does not mean that disorders like these are not treatable. The emphasis on naming diseases is pervasive throughout medicine, not just in psychiatry and neurology. And it is the single biggest obstacle to changing the way we do things and finding the answers to our health problems.
In contrast, the functional approach really asks more deeper, probing, and from my perspective, thinking questions, which Most doctors have spent a lot of time learning, and we might as well get the best out of their brains.
What has happened is that we are practicing medicine that's a century out of date, basically. While things have moved forward in Silicon Valley and things have moved forward with iPhones, and look at what you can do today that you couldn't do even 10 or 15 years ago. Medicine is still being practiced an old-fashioned way where we look for a specific diagnosis. That's not the way physiology works. So what we need to do then is to ask in 21st century medicine, instead of to ask what it is, to ask why it is. What are all the contributors? And so we need to close what I call the complexity gap. So, for example, you have a computer that can fly a plane, for example. You have to match the program with with what is required for the plane, with the complexity of what it takes. Now, in medicine, we have a tremendous gap. We have human organisms that are incredibly complex. They have complex chronic illnesses like neurodegeneration. And what do we ask? Serum sodium, serum potassium, a few things like this. It doesn't come close to addressing it. Therefore, what do we come away with? The idea that these diseases that are complex chronic illnesses are ineluctable. You can't stop them, you can't see them coming, there's nothing you can do. What that is wrong. If you use larger data sets, if you look further at what is actually driving the problem, and we can see this from the laboratory research, here are the things that actually drive the problem. Then you can see that in fact there are specific contributors, and it's virtually never one. It's a combination of contributors that add up to an overall change that leads to a complex chronic illness, like one we would call Alzheimer's disease.
And so you're talking about multiple interventions working on different aspects of brain dysfunction, whether it's diet, exercise, sleep, light, sound, taste, movement. All these things are ways of accessing the brain that have really been neglected and almost ignored in conventional medicine.
Well, I think it's fair to say ignored would be a polite way to talk about it, the kinds of dismissals.
We are at the forefront of the evolution of neurology, like what is possible with healing in the brain. I am so excited for that. Everybody should be doing these things because we don't want to wait until someone develops Alzheimer's or dementia, because that's kind of like the end game, right? We want to make sure we catch those things earlier on. But the exciting thing is, even if it is endgame, there's things we can do to reverse that. Exercise, we change our diets, and we do all these wonderful things. But the brain, the same thing, the brain can respond to those things as well. There's this radical new field. It's been around in the scientific communities for a long time called epigenetics. And that just speaks to our ability to take control of our health. And that applies to the brain as well. And we can do things like change our diet. We could change the way we think about things, our mindset. We can make changes in lifestyle. We can exercise more. We can connect more with our loved ones. All those things have been proven to actually slow, stop, and even reverse any type of neurodegeneration. Things that are good for the heart are also good for the brain, right? Things such as exercise and diet, lifestyle, specific supplements, stress management. But the brain is unique. Not only does it respond and require nutrition to thrive, but it also needs exercise and activation.
Treat depression and autism and Alzheimer's or any disease that affects mood, behavior, or the brain, we must learn how to get rid of the causes of inflammation, such as leaky gut, and also to restore the normal immune balances through the food we eat, through nutrients, exercise, sleep, and stress management. You can impact your brain through your diet and heal your body. In fact, your body and your mind are not two separate systems. They're one elegant, continuous ecosystem. What you do to the body affects the brain, and what you do to the brain affects the body.
How does that feel to you?
That feels lovely.
Great.
How do you cope when you meet the challenges of everyday life? We can all suffer from stress, trauma, and illness. We might trip up on our way to work, have an argument with our boss. We might suffer from a chronic health condition, or we might receive some worrying news. All these factors can build up over time and contribute to us feeling unwell, exhausted, and run down.
Okay, Hannah, can I just get you to arch your back slightly?
How we deal with what life throws at us is different for each person. We may be triggered into fight or flight mode more often than we think, causing our systems to contract. Parts of our bodies tighten as we adopt defensive postures. Our breathing gets quicker and more shallow. Our digestive systems shut down, and we struggle to think clearly when we're in this survival mode. Craniosacral therapy can help shift us out of this state into a more relaxed mode of being, allowing our bodies to function optimally.
Hannah, how does that feel? I can feel tingling all down my back and warmth in my stomach. It's very relaxing. Great.
Craniosacral therapy was developed by osteopath William Garner Sutherland, who discovered the presence of tides in the body that he believed were connected to the cerebrospinal fluid that bathes the nervous system. Practitioners feel for these tides in order to enhance health. So what happens in a session?
How you been? How's your back been?
I've been a bit achy.
After a case history is taken, the therapist will usually treat you on a couch fully clothed. Gentle handholds are carried out on the body, and sensations such as heat, tingling, or gentle movements may be felt as the body responds to the therapist's touch.
Just a lift up here, lovely. Excellent, just relax on that.
During the session, if the hands, maybe on my head or here, and then suddenly I feel my legs just totally relax.
The therapist may pick up tension, restrictions, or distortions in the client's system, all of which may be indicative of ill health. These restrictions are gently released, allowing the body to find its way back to wholeness, fluidity, and balance.
Just get a sense of softening up back there.
What I feel from the practitioners with craniosacral treatment is a great sense of empathy with my body. I feel myself release tension and then melt into the hands of my own practitioner.
People receiving craniosacral therapy have reported improvements in emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual well-being.
Afterwards, I just feel totally energized, and it's wonderful. I found it quite magical, really. I love it.
I can feel all of me again, instead of just separate parts.
Here's how to try craniosacral therapy for yourself.
We have looked to the stars. We have searched our souls, but the answers seldom satisfy for long. We are able to cure, to treat, to extend life, even to create life. While we are not perfect,
we shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, We shall never surrender. I have a dream.
We endeavour to better ourselves.
That all men are created equal.
And now we have surely arrived at the golden age of technology. But our journey still continues.
Hello from the children of planet Earth.
Hola y saludos a todos. Shalom.
We are human beings, and we have risen above all others to become the dominant species on planet Earth. Never before have we appeared to be stronger, more powerful, and more in control. Why is it then that at this moment in time, our species has never been sicker?
We think we're at the pinnacle of our existence, and yet the reality is we've never been sicker.
We have been facing a rising epidemic of plagues, from asthma to obesity to allergic diseases.
And it's going to get worse.
Tomorrow's generation really is on the edge of the precipice.
We're bankrupting ourselves.
The cost would reach a staggering $47 trillion US.
That's not sustainable. We're hitting the wall right now.
Let's say you have 10 diseases that are rising at the same time. Perhaps there's one thing that's fueling them all. Our ancient microbiome, which protected us against many diseases, is degrading.
We estimate we have lost about a third of the diversity of our microbes.
If we miss the window at birth, then the immune system never matures correctly.
If you upset this process in the early life, then we may have consequences later.
And that can lead to production of disease later in life.
I think we're in the midst of the largest experiment in human history.
Humanity is heading for a huge health crisis.
The worst case scenario is in fact really terrible. We have to alert the public.
I don't think we're too late, but we're definitely not too early either.
Turn the microscope on birth. It's a really important part of a human being's life.
We can make a significant impact on health for all mankind.
If how we're born affects our chances of long-term health, we need to seize this opportunity to actually turn the course of human health.
If we don't take the bigger perspective, how do we know that we're not altering the course of humanity?
河流来充满我，生命泉源来浇灌我，有你同行，不再惧怕，无论何处，紧紧跟随。河流来充满我，生命泉源来浇灌我，有你同行，不再惧怕，无论何处，紧紧跟随。我要walk in the river, 我要jump in the river, 我要dance in the river of joy。
呢個係個胡金嗰個開口。如果肢體要活動㗎，即係話咁樣係開，咁樣係合。上面活動嘅方向，我哋可以細分到嘅。我哋雙手就係我哋嘅 healing hand， 就係我哋嘅儀器。腳底啦，即係大魚啦個位啦，一係就喺側邊啦，太陽輪。 咁即係話有呢一啲嘅不適，或者有啲膝頭哥嘅不適，有腳踭嘅不適，腳板底嘅不適，咁我哋都係要處理喺個腳嘅足站裏邊咧，做一啲手法去處理。慢鏡頭攞呢張凳，所以有碌咧就好啲，擺啱個位。呢隻手咧就黐住，呢隻手慢慢兜落去，完成捧呢個頭抱翻住。如果頭先佢呢啲就可能壓住到嘅腦神經啦，因為我哋有12對腦神經啦，其中有啲神經線都係供應我哋面部嘅肌肉啦。等住頭先阿言問面癱都係第7對嘅神經線啦。佢嗰個出口其實都喺耳仔後邊嘅。咁而家阿 Andy 嘅反應咧，都大機會咧係嗰個神經線嘅反射嘅釋放咯。咁盧脊軒其實就係一個全脊嘅鬆弛嘅釋放啦。咁落到去唔同嘅節段，唔同嘅神經嘅壓迫都有唔同嘅釋放啦。醉夢啦，佢有醉夢啊，佢嗰次嘅醉夢就咁樣。不過佢醒翻嚟唔知係6個鐘頭之後，咁就好咗佢前仆啫。嗰隻當瞓唔覺咯，咁但係嗰個質素就瞓得好好啦。